So this week I got to chat with my mom, and I'm so excited to share her with you. We talked through her faith, her family, and her future as she transparently shares about some good things like surviving a heart transplant and some of the more difficult things like being widowed by a husband of 48 years and raising a rebellious son who would grow up to become the unemployed alcoholic. I think you're going to be encouraged by her story. Thanks for watching and enjoy the chat. Welcome to a quick chat with the Unemployed Alcoholic. Who am I talking to?
I am Deno Sorrels, and I'm your mom.
Well, hello, Mom.
Hi.
I'm so happy to be chatting with you here. This is great.
Thanks. I'm enjoying it also. I always enjoy talking to you, and thank you for including me in this podcast. I appreciate that. That's cool.
For sure, for sure. Well, in the spirit of the podcast, who are you, Mom?
Well, I have many layers of who I am. I am a mother, a grandmother. I am a servant of Christ. I am a child of God, and I am thankful for my life. I am also a heart transplant recipient. I have been an associate in ministry for the Lutheran Church and am now a deacon in the Lutheran Church in the ELCA. And I am a fairly recent widow and have had 48 years of a very good and deep marriage to my husband, who has been a Lutheran minister for many years. And so I'm on this side of our life together and looking ahead for my life as an individual instead of a couple or a group. Like our family was a group, definitely. Our husband, wife, children, and a bunch of their friends. It all made up our household when as we were coming along on our journey. I'm also a faithful Christian. I love the Lord, and I love people who are marginalized, who are poor, who are unable to speak for themselves at times, and who need to be included in the life of our churches, of our communities, and our democracy, certainly. And at this time, I am concerned about the COVID impact on the lives, both economically and also just our quality of life and our lives for the many people who have already passed away from this worldwide. So I continue to pray and do what I can to keep myself safe and others as well.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting some of the things that define you, your faith, and that even the process of becoming a widow hasn't changed that.
Right. It has certainly not taken away my faith. I've relied on the Lord. Well, I can't say more so because um, it's been all along. It's been a journey that has been part of my life with Christ and our life with Christ, and that continues and that will continue. So that's good. And I also am a 16-year survivor of a heart transplant. And so that
Yeah.
was a really big event in my life and the life of our whole family at that time, I think. And so I've had a lot of limitations along the way on what I could and couldn't do or what I had enough energy to do. And but I have been so blessed, and uh, those years of taking care of my husband when he needed more care was just fine with me. He did so much for me when I needed more care. And sometimes life works like that. And there are years and there are years, and there are decades and there are decades. And I've been blessed with a lot of decades of good life.
Well, and I have been blessed by you having a lot of decades of good life as well. You know, I remember in high school
Yeah,
when you got the diagnosis of cardiomyopathy, and the prognosis wasn't good.
no,
Uh, in fact, I remember them saying that you likely only had a couple years left.
yeah, that was always uncertain, but the uncertainty was closer than it actually became. So it I was able to connect with the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor fairly early in my disease progression, and that really helped to delay the process. The medications that I received and everything kind of delayed the process. And then when I received the transplant, which was 16 years ago, over 16 years ago now, I was still in pretty good health and able to go right from home to the hospital for my transplant that day. Amazing.
Yeah,
And I give
yeah,
thanks to God for his mercy and his grace and his loving kindness, certainly in all of this.
yeah. Amazing is the right term for that, because
Mm-hmm.
I remember that time as well. I remember sitting in the waiting room with family,
Yeah,
talking, praying, waiting for you to come out, and it wasn't all smooth sailing on the operating table, right?
that's correct. Well, I remember you guys put together a puzzle. I still have that puzzle framed, and your wife, Renee, went and had it framed the next day and brought it to my hospital room during the waiting time. That was one of the things that helped you guys to kind of take the time, to use the time putting together a puzzle that became mine. So it was great. But yes, it was not all cut and dried, so to speak. My heart stopped before they were ready for me in the bypass machine. And so there was a possibility of a stroke from that. So even though the very lengthy surgery was successful, there was the possibility that I wouldn't wake up. And I understand that you folks got that message while you were waiting for information about me. Is that right?
Yeah, we were receiving updates, and that was one of them. You know, as I remember it, one of the surgeons actually kept you alive by literally hand pumping your heart with his hand.
Yeah. Well, that actually had happened before the transplant. Well, that might be the case for the transplant too, but another time when they were trying to attach the fourth lead of my pacemaker defibrillator, my heart stopped, and then they broke a few ribs out in the back and my left side, and hand pumped my heart and got it started again. So that was my old heart, and then the difficulty with my heart stopping before they were ready for it, that was also my old heart, my
Mhm.
given heart, the heart I was born with, and my new heart was waiting, and that was an awesome thing for me. I still am agog, I guess, and giving thanks, of course, for all of God's care during the whole thing.
Well, you know, and that's one of the things that's so special about you, Mom.
Aw,
That that in this situation where you were near death, in fact, by some definitions, probably dead.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And when you think back on that moment, instead of there being any feeling of anger or any feeling of being shortchanged, there's a feeling of gratitude.
Oh yes.
And man, that is something that I've seen throughout our whole life together is just this sense of gratitude.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm sure that, the emphasis that my parents, as I was growing up, we were not wealthy. We were rather poor. We always had food on the table and so forth. But there was always a sense of God's care and of gratitude to God for whoever we are and whatever we have received. And there was also a sense of giving to others who may not have had as much as we did. And so there was a sense of gratitude and a sense of generosity in my family as I was growing up. And I think that really set a tone for my whole life. And God's grace has certainly been a big part of who I am.
So the priorities and the dynamics of your parents really helped form your own priorities, huh?
Yes, and definitely, I would say that absolutely. So, and I had a chance just recently to go and see the graveside, to go to the graveside of my parents at Uppsala Lutheran Church Cemetery near Lake Park, Minnesota. It was a blessing to kind of see their resting place, even though they are not there. They have been they're risen and they're in heaven and they're enjoying life more than they did here. But the rest of us are all still here and kicking and making as much trouble and fun as we can.
Ma Making as much trouble and fun as we can.
Yeah,
That sounds great.
yeah, yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned, your faith and
Oh,
the
yeah.
relationship that you have with Christ. What's that like to have?
It is never being alone, even though you're alone. It is inspiration to move forward. It is knowing that we'll be together with our loved ones when it's our turn to pass, when it's my turn to pass. That won't be the end of the story. That is the entrance into a new life, an eternal life. And it's also fellowship with people of the church, people who are believers who love the Lord. And it's a very good thing. That doesn't mean I'm never lonely because I do get lonely. Aaron and I used to, your dad used to talk about a lot of things, and we shared a love for the Lord and shared ministry. And so not having him in my life is a very big loss. But sometimes I can almost figure out what he would say about certain things.
Yeah, yeah.
And we have a lot of good memories. We have a lot of difficult memories too. Life was not uh, charmed, but it was certainly gifted. So,
Life was not charmed, but it was gifted.
yes, yes. And then I was able to um, get education, and I went to Bible school right after high school in California. And that was a very formative time for me. And we did some mission work in Tijuana at an orphanage. On Saturdays, we would drive down there and work with whatever needed to happen at that orphanage. And then we would come back and we got experience in a number of different churches. So the purpose of that Bible school was it was very mission oriented to prepare people to go into missions or to also prepare people to lead a life of leadership and in church settings, lay leadership.
And
And
what were the people like that you encountered during that time?
well, the people at the Bible school were awesome. They were very dedicated Christians. A lot of fun. Living in Los Angeles as a young person at that time was fun. we, there was the beach and there were all kinds of Disneyland, there were all kinds of those kinds of things. And it was great. It was very formative. And I still have friends from that experience today that were there at that time. So that's a blessing too. It's a real blessing.
Sounds like your, friendships and relationships are very important to you.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. I've been blessed with a lot of friends and a lot of people that I know and care about and who care about me. It's a very good thing. And when my husband was in service in the churches, then I started on a path to become an associate ministry. And I was able to complete that after my heart transplant. And so I served as an associate ministry in a small church in Michigan, um, not too far from Aaron's two churches, two small churches. And so we really shared a lot of experience during that time. And I still think of that time as just a wonderful treasure that I was able to serve in that way.
So that must have been a really good feeling to have already had a very negative diagnosis,
Mm-hmm.
to already have a prognosis that doesn't look good.
Yeah,
And then through the help of doctors and through the blessing of God, to be able to make it to the time of a heart transplant, to go through that heart
yeah,
transplant,
yeah.
and then be able to work in the ministry, which is something that you've always pursued.
Yes, yeah. And I really did not think I would survive the surgery, but I did. And we don't always know what's ahead for us, but God does. God knows. God knows more than we do about any given situation. and and that's a good thing.
That sense of peace, that is something that I only see amongst my friends that have a relationship with Christ. That's something exclusive to
Hmm.
say, I didn't think I was going to survive, but I did, and I'm
Yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah. And I have had many years since then of joy with my family members. I remember your son Tim, while everybody came in to see me all gowned and masked and gloved and all that stuff. And your son Tim at that time said, "Yep, I'm ready for surgery." And he snapped his glove. But then later he said, "Oh, Grandma," he said, "I don't know what I would have done if you had died."
Yeah, that's something that I'm very grateful for, is that our entire family has great relationships. And
Yes,
much as you were talking about with your dad and how he passed along things that made you who you are,
yes.
I strongly feel that it's because of you and dad that all of us kids have such great relationship.
Yeah, I'm so thankful for you kids. As kids, you were, well, let me say, adorable. there, there were various degrees of that, but you were always very creative and interested and nice, nice kids. There were a couple of snafus when you were in high school. I remember those, but and then as grown-ups, you're really good contributing adults, and all of you are, and that's a wonderful thing as a parent to realize what great grown-ups their children have become. So both Dad and I felt very blessed by how you guys are as grown-ups and how you are as parents to your own children, and it's a blessing. It's to see that and to be a part of that as well.
So in a recent episode of this podcast here,
Mm-hmm.
I was able to reflect a little bit on that time that you referred to as a snafu. That
Yeah.
that time of me being a little rebellious. What was that like, and how did you get through it?
Well, it was not easy because it was hard to understand because you'd always been such a nice kid, and then you were doing things that were questionable, and we were looking ahead and thinking, oh, if he goes down this road, that there are more dangers ahead, like drug use and stuff like that, and
Alcoholism.
yeah, yeah, which is that happens to a lot of people, and I remember your dad actually thought, well, maybe Grandpa could, maybe he could go live with Grandpa for a while. That would have not have been an easy time, but and we both decided, no, this is who he is. This is who you are, and we are going to have a long life relationship with him. We are not going to do something that will make your life harder or send you to someone who maybe are stronger disciplinarians. No, this is who we are, and we're going to have a lifelong relationship with you. All is not said and done in high school, that's for sure. So it helped us to look at the long view and the long-term relationship instead of just things that were happening right at that moment. That kind of gave us a better take on things and how to continue to parent you. You weren't like a lost child. You were always a good kid in my eyes, and in your dad's eyes too. So yeah, that was kind of a difficult time. And we couldn't understand why you were doing some of the things that you were doing. And that's just kind of how it was. I don't know if that answers any questions for you or not, but um,
Well,
and
yeah, I mean,
we
I appreciate.
decided we decided not to have all of our communications about things you were doing wrong either. So that was good. We didn't have to deal with the difficult things every time we talked to you. That was not
So,
something that we were doing.
so
So that
that's
was
the
good.
first time that I've heard that. So you and Dad strategically decided that it wasn't all going to be on what I was doing wrong or whatever. You decided to
Right.
have. Okay.
Yeah. And you have brought joy, even when you were being grounded for something you did, then you shared things with your siblings and you were a good kid. And we ran with that. We accepted that. And you've turned out great, the way you have been able to address difficulties, the way you have raised your family and your relationship with your wife, they're really a blessing, all of that. So that's good. And you've got kids who love you. That's great. Not everybody, reaches adulthood of their kids when their kids still love them too. So that's that's a blessing for you guys as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's well, and much as you said, when you think upon your parents and how
Yeah.
their priorities translated down to your life, I would say the exact same thing about you and Dad's priorities and how you approach things and the gratitude, like we talked about earlier. That's
Hmm.
all stuff
Thank
that
you.
made that possible. So
Yeah, yeah, it's certainly been a blessing. Even the challenges have been a blessing.
even the
So,
challenges have been a blessing, huh?
yeah, yeah. Of course, I'm saying that in retrospect. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, Mom, even in this time of transition, in this time of COVID and global pandemic and national strife and all this stuff, you've had the opportunity to travel a bit, right?
I have. I've driven myself, and so I've been able to control the environment in my own car. And I've been very careful about mask wearing and about numbers of contacts and so forth. But I was able to spend some time here in Madison with Matthew and Gerard and Adrian, and then to see my sister Barbara, and then go on to North Dakota and see my sister Becky and my friend Lauren, who is long ago friend. Yeah, and a very very good friend at this time. So that's been a blessing for me as well. So
Was
and
that
now
two
I'm
or three varies? A very, very good friend, you said?
a very, very good friend, very, very good gentleman friend. So, yeah, we had a good time together. So that was nice. And, I'll be coming back to Portage and hanging out there probably for the winter. We shall see. We shall see. So, it's supposed to be a deep winter. I understand the squirrels have been squirreling away extra food. So that's the sign of a deep winter coming
Okay.
up. So,
All right. All right. Yeah. So this episode it's going to air right around the holidays, and
oh
I know this is going to mark the 2-year anniversary since
yes,
Dad passed. How are you
yeah.
going to approach the holidays?
Well, I have thought about that a little bit. I expect them to be a little more difficult, a lot more difficult, maybe even. But I'll try to. get together with family as possible and go day by day, but I try to do as many activities as I can that will be helpful to carry me through that period of time. And I will continue to give thanks for all that God gave us through the many years that we were together. We had a lot of fun, and we had a lot of challenges, and we had a lot of living in God's grace. And then whatever is ahead for me, before, I know He's at peace, and He's where He wants to be right now, and that's a wonderful thing. He's with the Lord. And so, yeah, I expect it'll be a little tougher. But I might come up to Grand Rapids a little bit. I might come back here to Madison a little bit, to get through that period of time. So we'll we'll kind of take it as I get closer. I'll probably make more firm plans, but for right now, I am aware. And I have a therapist that is very helpful to kind of ground me, or through some difficult transitions. So, and that's good. So, and God helps in many ways that are seen and unseen.
In hearing you talk about that, I'm just again and continually impressed with your sense of gratitude and your sense of hope and your sense of receiving comfort. It's
Yeah.
amazing, Mom.
Did I
You're
hear you
pretty.
say I was a rock star?
Yeah,
That's what Jesse called me.
yeah, yeah.
One
Well,
of the
you,
days when I was feeling old, and I said, "Oh, I'm so old," and she said, "Mom, you're a rock star."
yeah, yeah. Well, it's interesting because oftentimes when I'm talking to other people, I
Yeah.
will talk about how great my mom is, and
Aw.
everybody thinks that their mom is the best. I just happen to
Yeah.
be right.
Aw.
Yeah,
Yeah. Thank you. That's a very high compliment.
yeah, yeah.
Thanks.
And you mentioned that Dad's journey is completed, and he's
Yes.
where he wants to be. Um,
Yes.
I know I've shared with people a little bit about his end of life experience from my perspective,
Oh
and
yeah.
yeah, and it was about the best end of life experience I could imagine. Uh,
In so many ways, he was able to see all of his children and grandchildren before he passed. And it was real important to him that you were there with him, and Matthew and Jesse and Becky, all of that, and your loved ones, very important to him. And it made him happy at the end. And then, as he shared with you, he was ready to meet the Lord. He desired it even. He had been a man of many words his whole life, and towards the end, he couldn't speak much at all. And so that was a big change for him. But he weathered those changes until the welcoming arms of the Father.
well, he was a great man, and you are a great woman.
Oh,
When
thank you.
Yeah, when I look at you, I am very grateful. I am grateful for your outlook during a rebellious time in my life, that you prioritized a lifelong relationship above and beyond the emotion of the situation. I'm grateful for your example of faith. Growing up, yeah, we didn't have a whole lot of money. We didn't have a lot of that, but
Yeah.
but we had other things that money can't buy. And that sounds cliche, but we had a respect and appreciation for each other.
Yes. Yeah.
We had relationship. We had honesty, and
We had fun together too.
we did. We had fun. We laughed. Laughter
Yeah.
is so important, and it doesn't cost all that much.
Yeah, it's when I look back, I think, how did we do that? But it just, God's provision and our ability to kind of not spend a lot on certain things, but spend money on other things, so, and our
Yeah, and I
lives together
never,
were good.
yeah, I never felt like we were in poverty or we were. I never felt like we went without. We certainly never went without food. We
Right.
did go without running water for a summer.
I think that was the water heater went out, and
Yeah,
so so we went and we had our showers. I mean, we went swimming every couple days, and had our showers in the swimming pool shower room
see,
for a
no
while until we
problem,
could
right?
save up the $400 for the water heater or something like that. If my memory serves me correct, which it doesn't always, but
Yeah, yeah,
that was quite a tricky thing, but it
mm,
was temporary, thank goodness.
yeah.
So there are a lot of people who were much worse off than we are, and there are a lot of people who are worse off financially than we were.
You mentioned earlier that or you're thankful for even the hard times, and
Yeah,
that's there's some serious grit to that statement because you can't see the provision and blessing if you're providing everything on your own. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
yeah,
But
and
if you're
so
trusting, then you are able to see some of the things that you can't provide on your own, but that God is gracious and merciful. And that's a lot to give thanks for.
indeed, that's a lot to give thanks for, and
Yeah.
there's a lot for us to be thankful for.
Yes. And as we approach the Christmas season coming up and the end of the year 2020, which has been a wild and crazy year, um, giving thanks continues to be one of the most important things that we can do. Giving thanks and loving others, loving God, loving others, and giving thanks.
And if we had to sum up who you are in one word, probably thankfulness would be that word.
That would be a very good thing for me to live up to. I'm not perfect or anything like that, but
Yeah, yeah. Well, none of us are perfect, but
yeah,
we are who we are.
yeah. And it is what it is.
Right, right. Well, thank you, Mom, for sharing
Oh,
a little bit on who you are. We're going to take a quick break here, and then when we come back, I'd love to know what's one thing that's going well for you right now, and what's one thing that you're struggling with. So, thanks for listening. We will be right back with more from my mom. Welcome back to a quick chat with the Unemployed Alcoholic. I am here talking with someone who's very special to me, my mom. And thank you, Mom, for sharing a little bit about who you are and some of the things that have shaped you. What's one thing that is going well for you right now, Mom?
well, right now I have been seeing, my family members and so forth, and I think on a daily basis, my life has felt a little bit back to normal, which is good, which feels good. So I think my daily life has been improving. I don't find myself as sad or as saddened by, oh, either hymns and spiritual music or romantic music. The first year anyway, I didn't allow myself to listen to any of the romantic music, just because it would make me cry. So I'm finding myself being back to normal and renewing friendships and reaching out to people a little bit better than I did at first. So that's been good for me.
So that return to normalcy, uh,
Hmm.
that's a huge blessing for you right now.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
It's I think you're probably one of the few people that would look back on 2020 and say the best thing about it is the return to normalcy.
Yeah, I can't blame 2020 for returning me to normalcy.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, there are going to be a lot of stories that will come out of 2020. It's almost like fodder for comedy and writing, but it's too soon
yeah.
for a whole lot of comedy on that. But I can see in the future we'll look back on 2020 and say, wow.
Yeah, it's a year that will be remembered by many for sure. Uh,
Hmm.
2020 has
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
been
So,
well, but it is great to see the good things that are coming through, despite, in some cases, even because of the disruptions.
yeah, yeah, and I don't think that suffering is something that God wants for us. You know, some people say, "Oh, that's how we learn best," and I don't think that God wishes for us to suffer badly, like what many people have been doing. But I know that God journeys with us and carries us through when we are not able to make it on our own. You know, God is there for us, and that makes a huge difference in facing difficulties, and including 2020, you know.
And you mentioned that, despite some of the things that 2020 has brought, there's been other good things that have happened. You mentioned the return to normalcy, or I think what you're referring to there is you've gone through more of the grieving process and
Yes.
are ready to get back to living your life in the way that God intends.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. In fact, I couldn't have said it better myself.
Mhm.
So that's good.
And on that point too,
Hmm.
getting back to normalcy, I want to say that your friend that you went and visited.
Yes.
I'm so happy for you and so proud of you that you're engaging in relationships and reacquainting yourself with old friends, and that
Hmm.
I think that's just absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, it's part of healing, I think. Uh, my husband, Aaron, will always be a big part of my life, but it's part of healing to be able to see life after the loss, you know. So that's really good. And that's why I go to therapy, and that's
Uh-huh.
why I continue to try to do things for others and for myself. And but it's been very strange after about 5 years of doing a lot of caregiving for my husband to not have any demands on me. That's been very strange, you know, not having anything that I had to do right now. That was very strange. I mean, it was good. I was able to restore my resources, resting a lot, but that was very strange. It added to the strangeness of the 2020
Yeah.
year. But you were so good about coming down to see me. And I even remember, you know, when you and Tim brought the mattress pad, that 6-inch mattress pad that was so great. And you cut it to size and all that stuff. You've been very, very good to me. I've just been blessed by you kids and your care for your mother and your, uh, you know, you've been awesome kids. You are awesome kids. So
Well,
I
and
really
I
appreciate that.
tell people, I am a great person. Just ask me.
Just ask my parents. Yeah, my mom. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, Mom, what's one thing that you're struggling with right now?
Well, I struggle with looking ahead and seeing some of my resources going downward, and I struggle with how to stretch that so that I mean, my life expectancy is probably longer than my resources. So, but you know, as you know, Matthew and Adrian have invited me to come and live with them, which of course would be wonderful. I don't know if that's where I'm led right now, um, but possibly I'm. I've found it hard to make decisions. That's been a big thing that's been different for me that I've noticed. It's been hard to make decisions on my own. So I consult with a lot of people, you included, and take kind of a day at a time, as much as I can. But some things require, like if I were to move, that would require a lot on my part too, and a lot on the part of Matthew's family and so forth. So I'm not completely committed to that as a direction right now, but maybe in the future. So that's one of my concerns is my, I expect that I have quite a bit of longevity ahead of me. So to kind of stretch out the resources that I have is continues to be a concern, you know. So that's that's a biggie. And then
Yeah. So
uh,
a couple of things that I want to share with you on that. One
yes,
of the things that I learned in my youth growing up is that even if we can't look ahead and see where the provision is going to come from, it will come.
yeah,
So yeah, I think you're
yeah,
absolutely right in the sense that you have a lot of longevity left,
uh-huh, uh-huh.
and even if you look ahead at resources and say, "Well, I'm not sure how this is
I
going to
don't see
stretch."
it. Yeah.
Right? It will stretch. You will be provided for,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
yep, yep. So
Yeah, and that's good to be reminded of because I know that from my past history with God, walking with God, and but it's good to be reminded of it.
and the other thing I
Yeah.
would say there is, Mom, you are a very capable woman. You have the ability to make confident decisions and move forward in good ways. It is wise for you to gather counsel and to talk with
Uh-huh.
people, but you can rest assured that when it comes time for you to make decisions, you have everything that you need to make decisions and move forward.
Oh, thank you. That's really good to be reminded of too. Thank you. Yeah, thanks. So I'm not feeling real urgent, like I'm on a precipice or anything like that. So I'm just moving forward as I am led, sort of. That's that's kind of the picture in my mind, you know.
Yeah,
One of my favorite verses in scripture is from Lamentations, and that, it's a book in the Bible that it's full of lamentations, but hidden in there is a verse that says, "The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. God's mercies never come to an end. Great is thy faithfulness." And that's been a favorite scripture passage of mine for many, many years. And it's kind of something I've held on to, and it's seen me through things that have been difficult at times. And it's one of the truths of the Gospels and the Bible and our lives with God, our lives with grace in grace. So, and I've got very supportive, speaking of Grace, my sister Grace, too. I have very supportive siblings that I have, that I'm in good contact with, and that's a blessing in itself
yeah.
as well. Mhm.
Well, thank you, Mom, for sharing that verse. Thank you for sharing your interpretation of it, and thank you for sharing who you are. I've been blessed, and I'm very fortunate that I've known you quite well for pretty close to my whole life, I suppose. But
Yes,
a lot of other people haven't had the opportunity and the blessing to get to know you. So thank you for sharing who you are with everybody. So
oh, you're welcome, and I love you.
yeah, I love you too. Well, normally I would invite people to share their contact information, but Mom, I'm a bit protective of you, so I'm just going to say,
That's fine.
yeah, if anybody wants to reach you, they can come through me. So, and if you ever
Sounds
want to
good.
reach me, you can always do so on my website, which is theunemployedalcoholic.com. While you're there, check out the different links to podcasts and videos of stand-up comedy and all sorts of other good stuff. This has been a lot of fun, Mom.
Thank you for inviting me to be part of your messages.
For sure. You are welcome to come back anytime, Mom.
Aw,
right. Yeah,
on that note.
yeah, on that note, thanks, Mom, for being you, and to everybody listening, thanks for being you, and have a great day.
This is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it.